see two guys.
Introducing our third man in the ring, our referee in charge of the action, Thomas Taylor.
As Terence Crawford, the undefeated fighter from right here in Omaha, and he has this city abuzz, I assure you.
Okay. So, Canelo Alvarez.
To give the instructions.
Music. Fight night. Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas pulsed with electricity long before the first bell. 70,000 voices echoed under the bright lights. A sea of flags, chants and anticipation. On one side stood Canelo Alvarez, a man who carried the weight of Mexican pride and over a decade of dominance. His legacy had been carved in blood, sweat, and unrelenting victories. On the other side, Terence "Bud" Crawford, a technician so precise and undefeated that many whispered he was the true pound-for-pound king. But he had never faced a challenge like this. This wasn't just two champions colliding. It was a generational clash. A fight between power and precision, between an established king and a hungry challenger ready to rewrite history. The crowd knew it. The fighters knew it. And as the cameras panned across the roaring stadium, it was clear this was a moment destined for boxing immortality. Backstage, the tension told its own story. Canelo sat calm, almost stoic, wrapping his fists with the same ritual he'd performed countless times before. His gaze was icy, fixed on the wall, as if already visualizing every punch he planned to land. His warm-up was deliberate, compact, a predator conserving energy before the hunt. Meanwhile, Crawford looked restless, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. He shadowboxed with sharp movements, switching from orthodox to southpaw with seamless ease. Every feint, every pivot seemed like a rehearsal for the storm he was about to unleash. Then came the walkouts. Canelo entered first, greeted by an explosion of cheers as Mexican flags painted the stands in red, white, and green. His walk was slow, steady, a champion who had been here many times before. Crawford followed moments later. His expression cold and razor-sharp. There was no dancing, no distractions, just a man walking toward destiny with an aura that screamed confidence. When both fighters finally stood face to face at the center of the ring, the noise was deafening. The referee gave instructions, but nobody was listening. The entire arena knew history was about to unfold. The bell rang and Canelo wasted no time. He came forward, stalking, his gloves tight as he immediately targeted the body. Crawford circled, his movements smooth, his eyes locked on Canelo's every step. He snapped out his jab like a whip. Quick reminders that he wasn't here to be bullied. Canelo dug a heavy right hand into Crawford's ribs. A thud that echoed in the quiet split second before the crowd roared. It was a statement. This is my ring. But Crawford didn't flinch. He kept his distance using quick counters, touching Canelo with short lefts that disrupted the rhythm. As the round wound down, both men exchanged at the center. Canelo's power versus Crawford's precision. The bell rang with the fight still in balance, but the message was clear. Canelo's physicality was going to be a factor. Canelo started with the same aggression, cutting off the ring and forcing Crawford into tight spaces. Midway through the round, he landed a thudding left hook to the ribs that pushed Crawford back for the first time. The crowd erupted, sensing a crack in the challenger's armor, but Crawford responded differently than expected. He smiled. A sly grin spread across his face, the kind fighters wear when they finally figured something out. Moments later, he slipped a Canelo jab and countered with a sharp right hand straight down the middle. Canelo's head snapped back and the crowd gasped. It wasn't enough to take over the fight, but it was enough to prove a point. Crawford wasn't going anywhere. By the bell, momentum felt uncertain. Canelo had shown his power, but Crawford had answered with precision. The fight transformed into a chess match with fists. Canelo advanced methodically, his gloves high, his body shots digging in whenever he found an opening. He wanted to slow Crawford down early, sat the legs that made him so elusive. But Crawford had adjusted. He floated around the ring, switching stances effortlessly, keeping Canelo guessing. From southpaw, he flicked a jab that repeatedly snapped Canelo's head back. From orthodox, he landed quick, stinging right hands that scored clean. Midway through the round, the two clashed at the center of the ring, trading furious flurries. Canelo's hooks whistled past Crawford's guard, while Crawford's counters landed flush. The crowd roared louder with every exchange, and by the end of the round, the shift was obvious. Crawford was no longer just surviving. He was finding his rhythm. Canelo came out with fire, determined to reassert his dominance. His gloves dug into Crawford's body like heavy hammers. Each shot echoing off the canvas and drawing cheers from his fans. The Mexican superstar was relentless, chaining punches together. Left hook to the ribs. Straight right upstairs. Another left hook to the midsection. For a moment, Crawford slowed, his movement less fluid. Then came the moment that sent the crowd into chaos. Canelo uncorked a thudding right hand to the temple that shook Crawford's balance. Gasps rippled through the stadium. But Crawford wasn't rattled. Instead of retreating, he snapped forward with a perfectly timed uppercut, splitting Canelo's guard. The punch jolted Canelo's head back, and in an instant, the tide of energy in the arena flipped. What followed was an exchange that belonged on highlight reels. Both men planted their feet at the center of the ring, trading vicious blows, Canelo throwing bombs, Crawford answering with surgical counters. Neither man gave ground. When the bell rang, the crowd was on its feet. This wasn't a fight. It was a war. And neither champion intended to break first. The atmosphere inside Allegiant Stadium was suffocating with tension. Every punch drew a roar. Every slip or miss, a collective gasp. Canelo pressed forward again, digging to the body with the kind of thudding shots that had broken opponents for years. Each hook reverberated like a drumbeat, a reminder of his legendary power. But Crawford was in no mood to be bullied. He sharpened his jab into a weapon, snapping it into Canelo's face with pinpoint accuracy. Like a sniper, every shot was measured, precise and disruptive. Midway through the round, Crawford's timing paid off. As Canelo lunged forward with a looping hook, Crawford stepped just inside and unleashed a short, crisp left hand that landed flush on the jaw. For a split second, Canelo froze, blinking as if to clear his head. The crowd erupted. Was this the opening? Crawford didn't overextend. Instead, he kept control, peppering Canelo with more clean shots and showing he was firmly in the fight. When the bell rang, neither man had dominated. But one thing was certain. This was becoming a war of attrition. It wasn't about who could throw more. It was about who could endure more. The sixth round opened at a faster pace. Both fighters clearly sensing that the fight was nearing a turning point. Canelo charged in bursts, launching combinations with bad intentions. But this time, his accuracy faltered. The punches that once found a home now glanced off Crawford's gloves or cut through empty air. Crawford's head movement and footwork frustrated him, forcing him to reset again and again. Crawford, by contrast, was sharp. He darted in and out of range, tagging Canelo with jabs and quick counters. Each shot wasn't just scoring points. It was wearing on Canelo's composure. By the second half of the round, the difference in styles was becoming clearer. Canelo looked for one big moment, but Crawford was chipping away punch by punch, carving control of the fight. Still, nothing was certain. Both corners screamed instructions as the bell rang. The energy in the stadium teetering between chaos and suspense. The tide was turning, but the fight was razor close. For the first time all night, exhaustion crept into the picture. Canelo's movements slowed. His punches, though still dangerous, lacked the same snap. The relentless aggression that defined the early rounds now looked more labored. Each step forward heavier than the last. Crawford saw it and pounced. He slid inside a lazy jab and unleashed a blistering three-punch combination. A sharp jab, a straight left, and a whipping right hook that cracked across Canelo's jaw. The champion stumbled back a half step, his guard momentarily loose. The crowd erupted into a frenzy. This was the first time Canelo looked truly vulnerable. Crawford pressed, landing another quick flurry that had fans on their feet. Sensing the shift in momentum, Canelo fired back, throwing heavy leather, but his accuracy betrayed him. Crawford's defense absorbed most of it and his counters punished every mistake. As the bell rang, Crawford walked confidently back to his corner while Canelo sat heavier on his stool, his corner scrambling to rally him. For the first time, it wasn't just a fight. It looked like the torch might actually be passing. The crowd was on its feet before the bell even rang. 70,000 voices fused into one deafening roar, knowing the last 3 minutes would decide history. Canelo rose from his stool with determination etched on his face. His body bore the marks of a long, punishing war. Swollen ribs, sweat pouring, breaths heavier than before. But his pride pushed him forward. He raised his gloves high and marched to the center of the ring. Crawford, calm and calculated, looked like a man who had been waiting for this exact moment. His eyes never left Canelo, scanning for openings. Peace stance light and ready. The bell echoed and both men went straight to battle. Canelo opened with furious combinations, digging.